Hey up guys, welcome to the only place where you're going to get wrestling content from a blind person's point of view. This is Wrestling in the Dark and it's time for an NXT vs AEW Super review. Over on Dynamite it's the go home show to full gear. Cody's got a huge announcement, Riho and Chris Jericho are both in action, and over on NXT it's all about retaliation as the main roster strikes back and Pete Dunne seeks revenge on Damian Priest. But which show was better overall? Well, chill out, have fun, and we'll take a look at this week's wrestling. Just like last week, I didn't want to show any bias, and I thought that I'd let the coin flip decide again. Last week, AEW was tails, so let's see who starts off this week's show.
Heads.
It's NXT again. Apparently, my coin flip likes NXT more, so let's get to that. It's probably not a surprise, is it? But I absolutely loved the opening to this show. It kicked off, Morrow's like, moments ago, Undisputed Era were attacked by the OC, and now they're here. And the OC make their way out into the arena. The crowd are giving them this weird sort of boo, but oh my god, yay, I can't believe this is happening sort of reaction, and it was really entertaining. I was like, oh my god, why have you waited this long to do this? This is so awesome. They hit the ring. Styles gets on the mic and he says that Undisputed Era tried to take over Raw because they want a war. Well, they're bringing the war to them. And I thought that was really cool. I was hoping that we'd get main roster stars coming down and attacking the NXT roster, but at the same time, I couldn't have foreseen that it had been the OC. He says that they're taking over. He has this line where he's like, why not? All your champions are out of commission, so we're taking over NXT. This brings out Ciampa. He comes out and he's like, guys, if you want to come and whip Undisputed Era, that's fine. But if you're going to stand there and say that you're taking over that, I do have a problem with. It's like, for years, people have been asking me the same damn question. When are you going to go to the main roster? Well, OC, let me welcome you to the main roster. Again, thought that was really, really cool. Just really establishing now that NXT is on the same level, and that's really, really cool. The fact that Ciampa is the one to be coming out and talking shit to them is sort of surprising. I would have thought that it would have been Johnny, but he seems to be thoroughly selling the beating that he's gotten from Finn, so that's good too. Plus they want to build the War Games stuff, and of course the OC are like, well, Styles is like, the three of us supposed to be scared of you, and I'm like, yeah, you totally are. But then Keith Lee and Matt Riddle come out, and Ciampa's like, looks like we've got plenty of boys. and then he extends the offer to have a battle later tonight, and AJ accepts. And I was just like, man, that was a great opening to the show. What a way to make me stick around and watch this to see how Matt Riddle and AJ Styles are going to do in the ring together. And Keith Lee, how's he going to go up against Gallows? And, Ciampa, is he going to be able to outthink them, etc., etc.? I just wish, the only thing that made this sort of annoying is that I really wish that Ciampa hadn't had that little brief, what was it, a week, maybe 2 weeks on the main roster, because it seems like he sort of did go there at one point but came back, whereas then if he hadn't have done that, it'd have been like, oh no, I never needed to go to Raw and SmackDown, at least not until we were doing this invasion thing. So yeah, the OC come to SmackDown and get challenged by Ciampa, Riddle and Lee, and what an opening to the show that is. Let's move on to AEW. Dynamite kicked off with the Bastard Pack taking on Trent in singles competition. Was surprised by that, just because obviously best friends have been more or less just tagging since they came in, but as they pointed out in the match, to be a good tag team competitor you've got to be a good singles competitor first. I actually really liked that Excalibur was like, ooh, I wouldn't want to be Trent because Pac's going to be even moodier than usual thanks to that time limit draw, and now he has an imperfect record. And I like that, a little character wrinkle to just make Pac even more vicious. Like, he was moody anyway, but now he's got an imperfect record, and that's going to make him even grouchier than usual. But let's get to the actual match. Honestly, the beginning of this match was just mostly commentary talking and not really even calling anything. I don't know whether there was anything going on or not. I don't know whether it was just that it was boring what was going on in the ring or whether they just couldn't be bothered to call it. But my notes go thusly. We get a best friends chant, and Excalibur starts talking about Pac's grappling skills, talking about how great they are combined with his high flying. We get a "Pac, you suck" chant from the crowd. He tries to intimidate Orange Cassidy, but Orange isn't scared. Tony says that Pac reminds him of the British Bulldog, and the first real move that we have on the notes here is that Trent does a Northern Lights suplex for a 2 count. Excalibur says that if Pac can win this match and his match on Saturday, then he'll be well on track to face the winner of to face the winner of Cody and Jericho's match, be it Cody or Jericho. Then Pac sends Trent into the barricade, and we get more "Pac, you suck" chants. Pac starts targeting Trent's throat, he steps on it, he throws strikes to it, and then after a while of just sort of whatever, he looks for a count out, and commentary says that he has dismantled Trent on the outside, and I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, he dismantled him. What with? Like, I know that there was the throat strikes, but I know for a fact that there was like stuff between that and the count out spots. I was just, by this point I was like, it gets so frustrating with these AEW ones, because I get up and I go to watch it and I'm like, God, I hope that I enjoy this, and they give us matches that I'm like, yeah, this should be good, and I was like, I'm really going to enjoy this Pac Trent match, but at the same time commentary is just it instantly kills my mood because commentary is not doing a good enough job. Pac takes to the skies and lands on his feet. Then we get a missile dropkick on Trent. Back in the ring, Pac gets a waistlock and a bridging German suplex for the near fall. Then Orange Cassidy gets in the ring, or they're outside of the ring, I'm not sure. Either way, Orange Cassidy starts trying to fire up against Pac. He starts doing stuff, the crowd's going crazy, everyone's loving Orange Cassidy, and I'm like, what the hell is he doing? For God's sake, Excalibur, get your thumb out of your arse. And then he just sort of doing whatever he's doing until he gets pump kicked by Pac. Then Trent starts fighting back. He gets a half and half suplex on Pac and hits a tope con hilo. The barricade was used a lot in this match. Pac gets sent into the barricade. A little bit later, he sends Trent into the barricade, but Trent rebounds off and hits a spear. We get Pac missing with a wild lariat, and Trent finds the mark, whatever that means. Then we get a swinging DDT for the near fall, a brainbuster on the outside, and once they're back in the ring, Pac hits the Black Arrow. It looks like a 3-fall. Everyone thought it was the full 3, but it wasn't, and then Pac just locks in the Brutalizer until Trent passes out. I really don't know. What I think of this match. It's the commentary. It's just the commentary. Like, I think, Pac pulling out brainbusters on the outside and doing all of his high-flying moves and all of that sort of stuff is really cool, and being mean to Orange Cassidy, that's really cool. But the commentary just isn't doing a good enough job, especially, like, every week it feels like it gets worse, and I don't know whether it's because my patience is getting thinner, or whether I'm sort of waking up on the wrong side of the bed when it comes to going and watching these Dynamite shows, but it just feels like every week the commentary just gets worse and worse and worse, and this week I did feel was particularly bad, and I do think that it hurt this match because there was just so many vague calls. And when you put it all together in notes and you're reading it out, and it's like, this happened and this happened, this happened and this happened, it sort of fools you into thinking that more might have happened, but it didn't. It's just like, there's so much between the notes. Like, I make these notes, but then there's these big silences, or not silences, they're usually talking about some old shit. It's just these big periods where they're just talking, and it's like getting half a match. It's like if someone showed you a match with all the big spots in, and they just like blacked out the rest of the match, I may as well just go and watch highlights or something like that. And even then, half the time with the highlights, it's like they don't fully say. But yeah, I am enjoying Pac being on a bit of a roll, and he cuts a promo after this, so let's look at that. A pretty basic promo, really, from Pac. It's just tells Charlotte to shut their mouths, and he says that he's heard what Cowboy Adam had to say, and tells him that he heard him and his naughty swear words, and that he's going to make an example of him at Full Gear. A decent opening to the show. Should have been better. I gave it a 3+ by my estimations. I usually score things out of 6, and I gave this a 3+ because I do know that if I could have seen this would have been a better match, but the commentary just severely let it down. But I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing Pac kick the shit out of Hangman Page, because I'm really not investing in Cowboy Adam. In terms of this being sort of the first round, I'd definitely give this to NXT, just because it's driving this awesome story forward of NXT mixing it up with the main roster. The OC invading Full Sail. It's just something that we've wanted for ages. The amount of times I've heard people say they want the OC versus Undisputed Era and that sort of stuff, and just them coming out and Ciampa being the one to come and challenge them, I just thought was really awesome, and just drove forward the story, got me instantly into the show. Whereas in the Pac match, I enjoyed it to a point, but it also made me feel like, oh god, like, what am I going to enjoy the rest of the show? So I definitely give the point to NXT here. So back to NXT, round 2, it's Pete Dunne versus Damian Priest. Pete's out for revenge for the damage done to his testicles a few weeks back. This, I thought, was, seriously? Guy with the motorbike, if you can hear that, I'm really sorry. Anyway, yeah, Pete was just looking for revenge for his balls. Can they not say balls on USA Network? Because Morrow really avoids ever saying actual bowls. He talks about the fact that Priest went lower than his voice to beat Pete Dunne last time. He lets us know that Pete was in the NXT army that invaded the main roster. I liked that. I was like, thanks, because I don't know whether I knew that, so I appreciated that one. And like I say, Mara's like, oh yeah, he kicked him in the bullseye, and I'm like, either you're not allowed to say balls and that's lame, or you are allowed to say balls and you're still making a stupid joke. They play up that it's Priest's size versus Pete Dunne's intelligence. Morrow saying that he's got a Mensa level in-ring IQ. They both go for the finishers early in the early moments, but each scouts the other. They both throw kicks, one a roundhouse and one an axe kick, but again, each misses the other, and then we get a commercial break. Back from commercial, we get Damian Priest performing the Falcon Arrow for a near fall. Then we get a replay of what happened during the commercial break, with Damian Priest hitting strikes. Pete locks in the double wrist lock, he gets an X-Plex, and Nigel starts talking about the fact that he's a gritty working class hero, which is pretty funny, really. I'm not sure why it tickled me, but I was just like, okay, fair enough, if that's how you choose to market him, that's fine. Pete lets loose with these nasty sounding chops. I mean, they really sounded nasty. I was like, oh, I would not want to be Damian Priest right now. Beth tells us that it was to the sternum, and I was really, really appreciative of that. Pete goes for a missile dropkick to the lower extremities, and then tries for a German suplex, but no dice. Then Priest goes for his own German suplex. Pete lands on his feet, gives him a strike. They fight, sends Priest to the outside, and then Pete hits a dive. And this was like the first sort of disappointing part about it. They didn't really tell us about the dive. Beth just shouted that it was beautiful. Morrow was just shouting about look at the air, etc. They talked about the placement of the shoulder though, so I just sort of assumed it was a suicide dive, but I was like, oh, come on, guys. They fight on the outside. Priest does a backflip and ends up dumping Pete on the apron. This doesn't affect Pete for long though, because he ends up getting a sit-out powerbomb for the 2 count, and Nigel puts over how deep he sunk that cover. Then he gets a double stomp on the fingers, and he goes for the bitter end. Priest manages to counter that, gets a roundhouse kick, and then we get Mamma Mia, what a move from Damian Priest, and NXT chants as it goes into the commercial break. I was like, Morrow, stop it. Bad Morrow. Start doing your job. Back from commercial, they're hitting a strike exchange. I was a bit disappointed that they didn't go into more detail with that. Pete hits a headbutt and gets turned inside out by Damian Priest. Priest looks for the Salt of Heaven. That gets countered. He ends up hitting that Splash Mountain Crucifix bomb for the near fall. Pete just ends up deciding to kick Priest in the dick as payback, gets equal, and then he gets the rolling cross arm breaker, finger snap, and Damian Priest is submitted. Then we get Killian Dane coming out, which was pretty nice. It was sort of expected. They sort of advertised it with talking about him in the match, and also it was just sort of expected because it's a feud, and Pete's done something and Killian's done something, and now it's time for, it's just, that's how feuds go. But it was pretty cool. He comes out, he attacks Pete, hits him with a Vader bomb and a cannonball. I think Priest might have tried to fight him as well at one point, but he just leveled Priest as well, because Morrow was just like, he doesn't care who he attacks. It's pretty cool that they're doing this Pete Dunne Killian Dane rivalry. I think it should be a really cool match. If they end up doing it at TakeOver, it'll be insane, and it'll be great to see Pete on TakeOver. I really enjoyed this match. Actually, I just wanted Pete to get his revenge on Priest. It's not nice. Don't kick people in the balls, especially not when you're a sportsman. Jesus Christ. But, yeah, I thought that this was a really good first match of the show. I was surprised that they chose to do sort of like the retaliation at this point. Like, I sort of expected this to be a main event match at some point, but a decent way of kicking off the show, and I really enjoyed the match itself. It's really, really great to see Pete getting more exposure on NXT. It means that I don't have to go and watch NXT UK to actually see the UK talent, which, as much as I would like to have the time to sit and watch NXT UK, A, I don't, and B, Tom Phillip. Back to Dynamite. Get excited, guys, because it's time for the big dog, the best thing since sliced bread. It's wrestling's Jesus Christ. It's Cody going to make his big announcement, his big dramatic announcement that is something that should have been at least saved for a little while because of... I'll get to it. Anyway, he comes out. After Tony tells Charlotte where they are, he asks Cody about his big announcement. Cody says that he's not surprised. The Elite are not surprised that the arrival of Chris Jericho in the Inner Circle has been blunt, strategic. They've taken a scalpel to the Elite, but this is fine because the Elite have been trying to find a group that can match up to them for a little while. He talks about the fact that he's now on the marquee going up for the championship against Chris Jericho. He talks about the fact that he gets criticised for his management position and quotes people like Dusty, who apparently, Dusty Rhodes is apparently his father. Not sure whether any of you guys know that, but he talks about them and the fact that they were the best bell to bell, but they also had management positions. He calls Jericho a carny succubus and says that he needs the younger generation more than the generation needs him. He talks about the fact that this is for his living family, for his mother and his brother, etc., and that it's about the 14 years from undesirable to undeniable, and says that if he doesn't win against Chris Jericho at Full Gear, he will never challenge for the AEW Championship again. Not sure where I've seen that before. Was it something from the 80s, maybe? An angle? No, it was 3 weeks ago. It was 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, on the debut of NWA Power with Aldous and with Nick Aldous and Tim Storm, with the Tim Storm not being able to go for the NWA Championship again. Maybe if you're going to do an angle, don't do it like 3 weeks after they've just done it. That did bother me. But, taking aside that, now are we in a dodgy little position? Because I know that friends of mine, like the indie correspondent Glenn, are absolutely convinced that Cody is going to lose. And I'm not. I bet against Cody the first few pay-per-views, thinking that he might have a bit of humility or whatever and not put himself over. Yes, I know, he doesn't make all the decisions. And I don't know. I can't bet against him, and I've got this horrible nagging feeling that he's gonna win, and I don't know. And even if he doesn't win, I can see they're not gonna. I don't think it's gonna be a clean loss for Cody. We're gonna get this situation where it's probably gonna go at least 45 minutes, maybe up to the judge's decision, and the judges hand it to Jericho or something like that. I hope not, because I don't want that match to go 60 minutes. I don't think I can cope with having to try and watch a 60-minute matchup. But that would be at least a bit more of an emotional story if Cody put up the best fight of his life and then the judges give it to Jericho. I just don't want him to win. I really don't. I think that it's too soon after Jericho has picked up the championship. I want to see more from Jericho and what he can do with the championship and the inner circle. I don't know. I just feel like they're just fast forwarding a little bit. I feel like if this had been sort of in 12 months' time, where they'd made me invest in Cody, I'd be like, yeah. But I feel like I said this to Glenn. It's like I wasn't that into Cody when he left WWE, and I don't keep up to date with the indies that much. I do a bit more these days. I do keep my eye out on what's going on a little bit more these days, but back then I really didn't. I've not seen any of the stuff that he's done in New Japan. I didn't even really watch All In, so I've never really been totally invested in Cody, and I feel like he's just been pushed into this sort of main event spot, and now it's like either he wins and he becomes the champion and it's too soon, or he doesn't win and he will absolutely 100% still challenge for the championship at some point. And yes, I know that you might make the argument that they could get a good story out of that, but at the same time, they'll still have to work it. Tony will have to come and be like, please, Cody, please, you've got to go for this championship. We haven't got anyone in the match. It's been vacated. Someone's got injured. It'll just be some lame reason like that. So it really frustrated me. I really wish that this was someone else. Goddamn, I even wish it was Hangman Page, because it'd be, the spotlight would be on someone that's not Cody. I just feel like there's a lot of spotlight on him, and when I watched All Elite, when I first started watching AEW, I was like, yes, new people that I can be exposed to, and I feel like it's not quite happening that way. I really want something to hang on to with Hangman Page, and this could have made it really, really cool, but yeah, the big dog saying that he won't challenge again if he loses, so let me know in the comments, please, what do you think? Who do you think is going to win? What are your theories here? Because I know most people are just like, oh yeah, well he said it, so he's going to lose now, but I'm not 100% sure here. As much as I didn't like that it was about Cody, I do quite enjoy the storyline itself of someone being like, no, I want to prove that I'm not just management, that I'm not trying to just get myself ahead. If I don't win, I won't challenge again. Going up against the Pete Dunne Damian Priest match, which was pretty decent. It's actually hard to decide which one I prefer out of these two. I think, taking out the fact that it's Cody, I enjoyed the delivery, and I thought it was a really, really good promo. The from undesirable to undeniable line was pretty great. I do like the fact that he called Chris a dick and a corny succubus. He's treading a good line with the shooty sort of things that he's saying to Jericho. And as much as I enjoyed the Damian Priest Pete Dunne match, it maybe could have gone 5 minutes more. Commentary could have picked it up a little bit more than they did. They dropped the calls a little bit, so as much as it pains me, I'm going to give this one to Dynamite, so it's one apiece now. Back to NXT for round 3, we get a Dakota Kai promo. Now, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but the last few weeks, and I've been watching on the network, I've not been watching on any illegal streams or anything like that, the audio for the backstage interviews has been absolutely atrocious. Like, it sounds like if I went and stood outside now and just shouted the podcast through the window. It's been so bad. I could barely hear what she was saying. But I'm pretty sure she got asked about being called a waste of a pick when it comes to the War Games matches, and she's going to prove that she's definitely not. Then it goes into Tainara Conti versus Santana Garrett. They were really trying to play up, and just as I've started talking, there's now something going on outside. Not sure whether you can hear that, so I'm going to pause it for a sec. I'm not sure how long it's going to go on for, so if you can hear it, I'm really sorry. And they really tried to play up the fact that Tanara is really technical in this match. So she tries to go over for the arm bar in the beginning of the match, but Garrett gets the monkey grip. Then we get a double knuckle lock from Tanara, and she tries to tie up Garrett, but she manages to escape. Beth was like, oh, managed to escape getting tied up like a pretzel there. We get a Russian leg sweep into the cover and an over the head belly to belly by me him getting ahead of myself. Overhead belly to belly by Tanara. Tanara hits this step up knee strike, and all 3 members of the commentary team sell how amazing it was. Nigel talking about the fact that it was right on the side of the jaw, and literally through the match they come back to it a few times. Garrett starts trying to fight back with her own strikes, but Tanara gets another knee strike. She gets the omoplata. She transitions to the rings of Saturn. Then Garrett starts trying to fight back again. She gets a handspring back elbow. Then she goes for a handspring moonsault, but Tanara's already back on her feet, and she gets a big kick to the face, and Garrett goes down for the 1, 2, 3. I don't think this was the most amazing match, but it's just to drive forward the women's storyline going on. With both women trying to impress with the War Games match, get Tanara out there a little bit. I thought that this was decent, but it wasn't the most amazing thing that I've ever seen in the world. I was impressed with Tanara Conti, actually, though. This is probably the first time that I've seen a match where she grabbed my attention. I really liked the fact that she was trying to be all technical. Love the fact that she went for the arm bar at the start of the match. I like that she got the Roman knuckle lock thing. I've been noticing that recently. I don't know why, but when they've been pointing it out, I've been noticing it. But that I'm a big fan of anyone who can do a really good knee strike, and commentary made it sound like that knee strike, the step up one, was absolutely amazing. So Tanara gets plus points there for me, really. I'll be paying attention next time she has a match. Over on Dynamite, it's tag team action. It's Private Party versus the Dark Order. Couldn't really be more diametrically opposed, could they, these two teams? Silly and dark. And then just silly. I was going to say it's silly and dark, but the Dark Order is silly and dark, and then the Private Party is just silly. I do enjoy Private Party though, and I was looking forward to this match to see a little bit more of them. I think they had Lucha Brothers on the Spanish announce desk, SCU on the normal announce desk. They didn't really say much that, though, at least not that I noticed. But yeah, let's get to the match. Grayson goes right after Mark Quinn. Commentary describes it as him being shot out of a cannon. JR says that Dark Order need to ground and pound and make sure that Private Party can't fly. We get a step up Komanguri. Then Grayson tries to sneak up on Cassidy, but it doesn't work. He gets a Uranagi anyway though, so it doesn't really matter. We get a Private Party chant, and Cassidy tries for the tag but gets cut off by Grayson, who gives him a shoulder to the midsection and dumps him on the apron. Then we get such height from Grayson as he crashes down on the chest of Cassidy. Then we get Mark Quinn tagging in, but he gets run over and gets hit with something that puts him down for a near fall. Dark Order look for the fatality, but Quinn manages to counter with a backflipping dropkick. He takes to the skies, whatever that means. Shortly afterwards, he gets a swan diving crossbody for the near fall. Then we get Grayson coming back over the top, whatever that means, shortly after he hits a net breaker. Then Private Party are, quote, stacked up like corkwood, and we get some sort of double team move that involves a 450. Commentary didn't really say what went on. I just know that it would have been a tandem offense sort of move, which had a 450 in it. Private Party end up trying to fight back. Cassidy tries for a springboard but gets taken out. But eventually they get the silly string. Quinn tags in, and then we get the gin and juice for the win. Little rhyme at the end of that. I mean, this match was fine. I definitely think that I preferred it to the Tanara Conti Santana Garrett match. I will say that I'm not much for the Dark Order, but then at the same time I also think that they're all right, and they've got potential and they could make them interesting. They just haven't really done much with them yet. Private Party, I'm glad to see them pick up another win, and you know that they're not slipping too far back down the card. They're still being treated as a really important tag team, and I thought that, considering that it was a fairly short match and the commentary didn't do that great of a job, there still seemed to be some pretty cool things here. So I'd definitely give that one to Dynamite, actually, so that's surprising. Dynamite goes 2-1 there. Back to NXT for round 4. AEW is probably going to struggle to beat this. I'm not sure. Sorry, not sure what just happened there. I had to go off and check something because someone was at the door. Anyway, AEW are going to struggle to beat this one. I'm not actually particularly sure what's next on the Dynamite schedule, but for NXT, it's Dakota Kai versus Shayna Baszler, and I have got to say, I really, really like the Dakota Kai Shayna Baszler story. The woman who is so afraid of Shayna Baszler that she froze, that she couldn't move or talk when Shayna turned up. She was fully afraid of her, and now this match demonstrates the fact that she isn't as scared. And let's just get to this. We get a "Shayna's gonna kill you" chant, which I was like, God, that's not gotta be nice if you're Dakota Kai. Even if you're getting over the fear of Shayna, that's gotta give you the chills. Then Shayna is just not taking Dakota Kai seriously. She is smirking and she's trying to back her up into the corner. She gets the waist lock and a handful of hair, but Dakota Kai clocks her in the face. She's getting angry. She throws a kick, but Baszler manages to avoid. DK rolls her up, but when Baszler kicks out, she hits an arm drag and a penalty kick. She goes for another kick, but Baszler manages to block and sends Dakota Kai face first into the turnbuckle. Baszler starts working Dakota Kai's leg and ankle, and this goes on for a little minute until the commercial break. When they get back from the commercial, Dakota's throwing kicks and trying to work through the pain. She sends Baszler to the outside, the opposite side to what Jessamine and Marina are at, and delivers a big boot to the face. Then we get this awesome spot where they fight on the top rope, and Baszler hits a super gut-wrench suplex for the near fall, but she's too slow to get into the cover. We get this bit where they're fighting on the apron, they're having a strike exchange. Commentary can't believe that they're going toe to toe. Dakota ends up hitting a headbutt, but Baszler counters with a roundhouse kick. Eventually, Dakota is hitting Kawada kicks to the side of the face. She goes for the go-to kick, but Baszler manages to get the Kirifuda clutch. We get an awesome spot with Dakota actually managing to escape the Kirifuda clutch before she gets locked back in, and that's when we get the tap. Post-match, Team Baszler start beating down Dakota, but then Team Ripley comes out, makes the save. It breaks down into a brawl until Mia Yim comes down with a kendo stick and starts battering away at all the women, and then that's who gets added to Rhea Ripley's team as the final member. I really can't wait for this Women's War Games match. The story being told right now with Baszler as this horrible bully character that has her friends around her that's run through everyone, and at the minute has a whole new set of competitors that are all gunning for her at the same time. She's got the locker room split between people that want to impress her and want to have her around, and the people that want to vanquish her. People that aren't even particularly nice people, like Rhea Ripley, who's not this clean-cut babyface character. When she told Dakota Kai that she didn't make the cut, she seemed to enjoy the fact that she's like, sorry Dakota, you just didn't make the cut. And I just thought that that was pretty cool, and as well as Dakota really managing to put up a fight against Baszler in this match. It was short, and there wasn't necessarily too much to it, especially before the commercial break, but that gut-wrench suplex spot was fucking amazing. And then we also just, having that strike exchange, having a go toe-to-toe, I just thought was really great. It's a shame that they gave this away on TV. I really would have liked to have seen this story of Dakota not being afraid anymore. I would have liked to have seen that played out on a takeover, but for what it was, to build up to this big War Games match with Dakota trying to get onto Team Rhea, and I just thought that this was absolutely excellent storytelling. So, back to Dynamite. I'm going to include this in this next section because it's too small to just not. So, we get a Chris Jericho parody promo, which is pretty funny, sort of making fun of the Cody video package from a few weeks back. Sammy Guevara says that Jericho's like a father to him. We get a bit where someone's like, if I know little Christopher, he's going to beat the shit out of Cody. He's a grown man and you haven't even got chest hair. We get a bit with Jericho talking about the fact that it's a huge burden waking up and deciding what to do that day and knowing where to go for the bubbly. It's a huge responsibility, but he has to face it as the champion. He's 48 years old, which makes him the youngest AEW champion in history, and I have no more to say about this promo than it was awesome and it was really funny, and I hope they do more of this type of thing. I really like that Sammy Guevara is playing this sort of like, yeah, Jericho's like a father to me sort of character. I think that was really, really funny. Then that leads into, sorry Sky, the women's tag team match. And yeah, let's get to. So the women's champion Riho teams up with Shenna to take on Jamie Hayter and Emi Sakura. And yeah, I'm going to complain about the finish of this match when I get to that. Emi gets basically no reception whatsoever, and why would she get any reception? Because it's not like they've actually given her that much exposure. We've seen her twice, but who is she other than the mentor of Riho? Then Jamie and Shenna both get no reaction either, and Riho only gets a lukewarm reaction because, again, why would they react to the women's champion? Because they haven't been using her that much, alright. Either way, no, both. They haven't been using her that much and they haven't been using her right. Let's get to the actual friggin' spots in this match. Commentary says, as Riho and Emi start the match, that Riho feels in many ways she's surpassed her mentor, but Emi feels like she's still got stuff left to teach, desperately cramming in story development into a match rather than telling it via video packages. Thanks for that. Then they start trading pinfalls early in the match, trying to put each other away. Riho goes for the tag, gets blocked by Jamie Hayter, and then knee strike takes down Emi. Strong elbow strike followed by an uppercut. We get a lifting uppercut from Shenna. She delivers a flipping neckbreaker for the 2 count. Then Riho is going for the... No, I've jumped one note ahead of myself. Emi Sakura gets hit with tandem offense by Team Riho, but kicks out. Riho goes for the Northern Lights, the locomotion Northern Lights, but that gets scouted. She goes for something else. Emi manages to counter that and hits a double underhook neckbreaker going into the near fall. Back from commercial, Head Scissors takes down Hayter. Riho hits a stomp on Emi. Then, oh man, my brain's going absolutely blank. Shenna hits multiple strikes, but the commentary doesn't even call one of them. The crowd's going absolutely mental for that spot, but they don't call even one of the strikes. Not one! And then they talk about the tickets for ages. Like, they just talk about it for ages, to the point where I literally wrote down, I don't care about your fucking tickets. Call the match. Emi Sakura goes for the "We Will Rock You" chant, and she tries it multiple times, but the crowd just isn't doing it with her. I wonder why. Shenna manages to block a Vader bomb. She gets a step-up Hurricanrana that sends Emi out to the outside. Shenna hits a diving crossbody that takes out both members of the opposing team. Once she gets Emi back into the ring, she hits a sliced bread and a double underhook DDT for the near fall. Shenna gets a full Nelson. We get a part where Hayter is hitting driving uppercuts, which sounds, pretty cool. Just driving them backwards, that sounds alright. We get a sit-out powerbomb for the near fall. Then Shenna tries for a sit-out DDT, which gets countered. Never really seen a sit-out DDT before. That sounds pretty cool. Then we get a Vader bomb, a near fall, which Riho breaks up with a double stomp to the spine. Then they're trading pinfalls, and Riho ends up eating the pin. So, fuck me, she's hardly in this match, and then she eats the pin. The women get barely any exposure anyway, and the women's champ is not buried. I'm not going to call her buried. I'm not going to use that terminology, but she does not look good. Weeks and weeks and weeks of them talking about how small she is, the fact that, she doesn't weigh enough, and not giving us any women's storylines, and then they force this Emi and Riho mentor storyline into one match and think they can make us invest with like one spot mentioning it like once. And then don't get me wrong, I actually thought spot wise, in ring wise, this was a pretty good match. There was some pretty cool stuff that worked, but I literally cannot give it I can't give Dynamite the point over NXT for this, because the Shayna Baszler Dakota Kai match might have been short. It might have not been maybe quite as good as I'd have liked it to be, but they still told the story of Dakota Kai, someone who was previously terrified of Shayna Baszler, rising up, coming back, fighting back and showing that she's not scared, versus this match where it felt like it was mostly about Shanna. Most of my notes are about stuff that she does, so either the commentary care about her more, and or the booking committee, whoever works on it, needs to just get this sorted, because I'm not happy with this women's division at all. The fact that Riho took the pin here, if she's not going to lose at Full Gear, then it's just sort of annoying. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't think Riho will lose. I don't think she should lose. But you've got Shanna in this match. Why did she not eat the pin? If you want the... I can't call them the face team, because we don't really have face and heels. Especially not in the women, because they don't have enough character to have face and heels, other than Brandy, who we shall get to very soon. The fact that Riho took the pin in this absolutely infuriated me. So this time around, the point goes to NXT, and it's 2 apiece. Back to NXT for round 5. It's a NXT Cruiserweight title number 1 contenders match between Tony Nese and Angel Garza. This one was a little bit weird. Not sure how I feel about it. It picked up after a little while, but to start with, it was bad. Anyway, Tony Nese, no, I'm getting it wrong. Garza goes for a submission early on in the match, but Nese has it scouted. There's this big section, and I mean a large chunk of the match, where commentary doesn't really talk about much. They talk about the heritage of Garza and Tony Nese's abs and stuff like that, and it's just general chatting. The crowd is reacting to stuff. It just sort of seems like Nese and Garza are trying to outcool each other, outshine each other. Nese tries to powerbomb Garza from the top rope, but he ends up ripping off Garza's removable pants and powerbombing them. I'm not sure how I feel about that spot. We get a wrecking ball dropkick, a moonsault, and a backbreaker all from Garza, and he goes for a cover on Nese, but only gets a 2. Nese gets a pump handle slam for his own 2 count. Garza fights back, hits a lung blower, goes up to the top, but Nese gets up and slaps him super hard in the face. Then we get a cartwheel escape and a DDT on the outside by Nese, who goes for a 450 splash for a near fall, but Garza, file size reached, cut me off again. Gonna have to keep an eye out for that next time. Yeah, Nese gets a 450 splash, Garza gets his feet on the ropes, and we get this funny bit with Morrow where he says thank God that he didn't clip his nails, and Beth's like, he's in boots, right? And Morrow's like, yeah, I know. And then we get a strike exchange and a wing, and the wing clipper from Angel Garza. This really, after the commercial break, it really picked up. It was mostly Garza. Tony Nese got a little bit of time to shine, but not too much. It was mostly just to sort of build up Angel Garza, who I'm actually quite interested in, past the ripping off the pants thing. Not really into that, but other than that, I say I'm not into that actually with the trousers thing, but it's to each their own. Comedy spot, don't mind too much. Something nice for the ladies. But it was just one of those sort of things. It was a quick match, number 1 contenders match. We'll get Garza versus Lio Rush at TakeOver now, which should be an absolutely cracking match. Lio actually comes out and offers the handshake, but Garza slaps it away. We get an edgy little video package by Brandy, who talks about the fact that she keeps getting criticised because she's Cody's wife, and people say that she's only there because of that. Calling her stupid doesn't make that so. She doesn't have power. She doesn't run a women's division. She never did and doesn't want to. She says that the bitching is catching up with you. You can't stop her and you can't stop us, who are the bullies now. Yeah, you know what? As I was watching this, I knew she was talking about Awesome Kong. Probably would have been even more awesome if she'd have been talking about herself. And I also do wish that she did, like, just... You know how you avoid getting criticised for being Cody's wife? Don't mention it every time you're on screen. She mentions it every time she's on screen, and then she has the freaking balls to complain about people complaining that she is only there because she's Cody's wife. If you didn't mention it, we wouldn't know. I'm not going to pit that against a whole match. It's Brandon Cutler versus Shawn Spears next, so let's... Honestly, this match just didn't interest me. It was a sort of foregone conclusion that Spears was going to win this. Brandon Cutler seems to be AEW's answer to a jobber. So we get a bit with Tony talking about Tully. Spears reverses a wrist lock and grounds Cutler. We get a great show of athleticism by Brandon Cutler. He gets a high kick and a Komanguri. We get an athletic move by a lanky, rangy guy, and I'm like, does JR like anybody's body type if they're under a certain weight? Then Spears is trying to dismantle Cutler on the outside. He hits some loud chops, and at one point Tully slides in the blood-stained chair that Spears used on Cody, and a Death Valley driver gets the win. So yeah, God, it's actually a hard choice between Nice and Garza in this, because both were sort of not particularly there for me. I will give it to NXT though, just because it did make me want to see Garza. It was a number one contenders match. I want to see a little bit more of Garza, like what's the wing clipper. I'd like to see some of his aerial offense and stuff, and it made me want to see Garza versus Leo, whereas in this didn't. The Shawn Spears thing didn't really it just didn't really draw me in at all. I wish it did, because I want to like Shawn Spears, but it was really short. There was no real moves called from the commentary. I've got like 5 notes, and not one of them is an actual proper move other than the Death Valley driver, which is the finish of the match. So yeah, I'd definitely put NXT over with this one. So it's now a... God, how many rounds have we even done? I think it's now a 4-3 win for NXT. Not a win, but the drawing ahead. We've actually got an extra match here that doesn't go up against anything. It's an NXT one, so we'll be doing 2 in a row here. It's NXT's Dominik Dijakovic versus Swerve Scott. The match kicks off and Swerve immediately goes for Double D's arm, and then we get like sort of an extended period of Dijakovic throwing Swerve around a little bit. We get a Feast Your Eyes, Swerve dueling chant, and commentary just talks about how Dijakovic is just tossing Swerve around the ring, across the ring, and every which other way. And then Dijakovic gets a pendulum backbreaker and a top rope splash for a near fall. Swerve sort of goes wild. He hits a leaping flatliner and some chops. Dijakovic tries to fight back, but Swerve hits a release German suplex, showing off his own strength. He hits a side kick and a DDT to Dijakovic, which was pretty impressive. Then Swerve gets crotched on the top rope. Dijakovic tries for Feast Your Eyes, but Swerve manages to counter that. Dijakovic gets a choke bomb for the 2 count. Then Swerve hits a poison rana for his own near fall. He hits a double stomp on Dijakovic at one point. He goes for the house call side kick. Dijakovic goes for a cyclone clothesline, and then ends up getting Feast Your Eyes. I actually thought this was pretty good. Quick, fast paced, both guys trying to end each other quickly. Real strength versus speed, and I'm a huge mark for Dijakovic now because of him answering the WITD challenge. It made it so much better knowing, when he's going for Feast Your Eyes, he's getting him up in the torture rack position, knowing that he's coming down and doing the left knee strike, right knee strike, and the left strike with the fist, and the Feast Your Eyes signs. It just made it so much more in depth for me. So again, thanks to Dijakovic for that, and I was really, really glad they actually managed to get the win over Swerve, because I was like, don't you dare make him do the job to Swerve, now that I'm a huge fan of him. So, not the most earth-shattering match, but some cool stuff in there that showcased both men. So, sticking with NXT, it's time for the final round, the 6th round, the main event of the evening, and it's Ciampa, Riddle and Lee versus the OC. And a brawl starts out before the bell even gets going, which just makes this feel even cooler. I was so happy that they did that. Well, the bell rings and AJ and Ciampa start off the match, which just instantly makes it cool, because I'm like, god damn, Ciampa and AJ Styles are facing off in an NXT ring. So AJ hits a dropkick that sends Ciampa to the outside. He hits a phenomenal forearm, but Ciampa manages to fight back and eventually hits the Willow's Bell. He tags in Keith Lee, who comes in and hits a kick to the sternum to Styles. Styles manages to tag in Gallows, and Lee and Gallows test their strength together, trying to see who's stronger. Eventually, Gallows goes to throw a right hand, Lee ducks, hits a pounce, and that sends Gallows to the outside. Keith Lee hits a leapfrog and a crossbody. Then eventually Ciampa ends up in. He gets isolated in OC territory, and Anderson hits him with a spine buster. Then Matt Riddle tags in a little bit later on. He runs wild, hitting strikes, exploder suplexes, a Bruton, a final flash knee strike, and a bridging German to cover AJ Styles, but Anderson breaks it up. Lee lifts up Gallows and actually manages to curl him before slamming him. AJ hits a brain buster for the near fall. He gets a boot to the face and a forearm, and Keith Lee tries to pounce AJ but gets the ref instead, and we get a holy shit chant, presumably because the ref just died. Then Riddle takes out both members of the OC that aren't legal. Ciampa goes for the fairy tale ending, but Finn Balor runs down and attacks Ciampa. We get a bit of a brawl, and eventually Cole comes down and he levels AJ and hits a move. He hits the last shot, on Ciampa, which is pretty cool, taking on multiple people at once. There's actually stuff going on there. Really like that Finn is coming down, teasing that he's gonna be rejoining his OC buddies. The fact that they sold that AJ was actually really happy that he attacked Ciampa. This was just pretty cool. It was simple and effective. They were just telling the story that needed to be told. It wasn't the best, most amazing match, but it had some pretty cool spots and drove forward a story that has been a dream storyline for a long, long time. The fact that we're getting Undisputed Era versus the OC is just going to be absolutely phenomenal. It's just, I'm really, really excited about it, and I thought that this was a really, really good way of ending the show, capping off the show, and making people more and more interested in War Games / Survivor Series weekend. I can't wait to see what happens with all of this. Before we get to the Dynamite main event, we get a Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley video package where Omega is like, why are you acting like you're upset? What else were you expecting? What were you going to do? Chain wrestle me? Oh, I'm so great. I'm Kenny Omega and you're Jon Moxley and you can't wrestle. Which just isn't true. It completely isn't true. I've seen many, many matches, where Mox has actually properly wrestled. So yes, I'm being worked by Kenny, but I think he's a dick. And I'm sure actual Kenny Omega, the man, is fine, but Kenny Omega, the wrestler, the on-screen character, he's criticising my boy. I like John. I like Mox. I really, really want to see him kick Kenny's ass now, which I guess is probably the point. And that leads into the main event, which is a tag match between Jericho and Sammy Guevara versus Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. The opening match consists of them talking about how awesome Kenny is for minutes and minutes. Like, it felt like it was a long time just talking about his accolades, etc., and his skill and the fact that he can wrestle so much better than Jon Moxley. That lasts until Guevara hits a backflip and gets an arm drag. Then we get chops, but no idea from who. We get a jumping back elbow from Kenny, who then tags in Page, and we get a cowboy shit chant. Jericho and Page are going at it for a while. Jericho reverses a whip into the corner and hits Cowboy Adam with a drop kick. Then Kenny hits Guevara with a sledge, and JR calls Sammy Guevara Sammy G 1,000,001 times, and I was absolutely getting sick of that. Kenny hits chops on Guevara, and they sell how red the chest is. Kenny tries to give Guevara a German suplex, but Guevara lands on his feet and hits a step-up enziguri. Sammy goes for a springboard move, but gets taken out by Kenny with an anti-aircraft move. Then Jericho does something, and JR criticises him for being in illegally, and I was like, do they not get a 10 count? I didn't notice that he was in for 10 seconds, so either you didn't tell that story right, or you've forgotten that your own company has a 10 count. They go to commercial, and when they come back, Page is going wild with chops. He hits a high boot that sends Guevara off the apron. He ducks a clothesline and hits a fallaway slam. He tries for the Deadeye, and Jericho tries for a Lion Tamer. Kenny goes to the skies, and Page hits an Orihara moonsault, but Sammy blindsides Page, and then eventually Jericho hits the low blow and a Judas effect for the win, which I was just like, okay, fair enough. I'm fine with that. I am actually okay with that. I like Jericho and Sammy Guevara. I was going to call him Sammy G then, it's because they absolutely drilled it into my head. Then it all breaks down into a brawl, which everyone loved, but the commentary just didn't handle that great. Cody needs a bit more TV time, so he comes running down and brawls with Jericho. He hits a crossroads. MJF hits Hager with a chair, and Mox comes running down with a barbed wire bat. Kenny gets his barbed wire broom. Santana and Ortiz throw Mox into Kenny. We get a little bit where Proud and Powerful are trying to powerbomb someone, but they get hit with a V-trigger and a paradigm shift. The Bucks come down at one point. Santana bites Nick in the face, and then Nick does something, but I'm not sure what, and they go off the air while the brawl's still happening, which I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. Is it going to carry on into Dark? I don't know, because I don't usually watch them. I just don't know. I wasn't sure how happy I was with the fact that the brawl was still going on, because it makes me feel like I'm going to miss stuff. It feels like they're trying to make me watch Dark. But I thought that this was a pretty good match. I really liked that sequence with Cowboy Adam, where he was hitting the chops and the high boot and the fall-away slam. I do actually quite like his offense, so there's that. I think the fact that his finisher's called the Deadeye is a little bit cheesy and a little bit on the nose, but the Elite like video game, so that's not a surprise. Another brawl so soon after the press box brawl was quite cool, if a little bit like, okay, don't overkill it, but I do really like that the Inner Circle and the Elite are getting proper blows in. They are really going back and forth, and they go into war. In Cody's little promo announcement thing, he said that when they finally clash, it's going to be a match beyond, which was the original name or the tagline attached to the War Games match. So they can't call it War Games, but they might be able to actually do a War Games match. So we'll see with that. It'll be interesting to see when they do it. I think that they'll need to do something quite big in January to compete with the Royal Rumble, so we could easily see that, or whether or not they want to, they're going to have to run a big show WrestleMania weekend, so it could be that. It's quite hard, really, to decide between these two main event matches, but I think I'm going to have to give the edge to NXT just because I am way more invested in what's going on there. I know the people more, I enjoy the story more, and overall, I just thought that I really enjoyed having AJ Styles and Tommaso Ciampa in the same ring, you know, Keith Lee and Luke Gallows, and just having all of that going on, as well as Balor's heel turn playing out, and him maybe rejoining the OC, and them going up against Undisputed Era, them gearing up for War Games. I when NXT went off the air, I was like, wow, that was a satisfying 2 hours, where I feel like with AEW, with them going off the air during the brawl, I was like, God, you don't, because you're probably going to do something cool that I'm not even going to know about. So that felt frustrating. So yeah, AJ Styles and the OC taking on Matt Riddle, Keith Lee, and Tommaso Ciampa definitely has to win there. So NXT takes it this week with a 5-3 lead. I actually wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be a lot closer. Commentary recently has been really weird, because as you know, I tried to hand out points and do this commentary system, this commentary league thing, but it's just not really working out, because a lot of the time they don't say stuff that warrants me giving points out. Even in NXT, there was some bits where I definitely thought, God, I wish you'd just pick up your game a bit more. But I definitely think that I'd have to give the edge to the NXT commentary team. And I actually really appreciate Beth telling us about the chops to the sternum and that sort of stuff. So I would give the NXT commentary team the edge here as well. So yeah, NXT coming away with a big win this week. If you've enjoyed this episode, click that like button and let me know, because remember, every interaction you have with the channel makes the YouTube algorithm like me more. And if you want to share any of your thoughts on this episode of WITD, or either NXT or Dynamite, you know where the comments section is, or you can follow me on Twitter at Mason_WITD. There's a link to my Discord server in the description, and I appreciate all the friendship, feedback, and support. I'm off, and you should have a good one.